back to Franklin Covey's twice weekly podcast on leadership with Scott Miller. That's me. I am your host and interviewer every week, twice a week now for 6 years, 400 plus episodes where Franklin Covey still allows me, can you believe it or not, to have a firm grip on this podcast. May not be as firm as I think. Stay tuned for the coming episodes and we'll see who replaces me at some point. Now, having said that, I'm honored to be here and will hope to be your host for the near future. We have the privilege twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays of interviewing the world's most renowned luminaries, whether they are academics, they're sometimes researchers, scientists, CEOs, entrepreneurs, creators, artists, visionaries, futurists. In some cases, they may be wildly successful actors, or they actually may be people that you don't know that have toiled for years learning something, perfecting something, uncovering something to help you become a better leader, a better teacher, a better, more effective individual. Perhaps it's someone that recovered or survived some unspeakable tragedy or trauma and summoned the courage and the discipline and the abundance to tell you how you too can thrive when you're faced with similar challenges. The full gamut, all designed to make you a better leader. This podcast is sponsored, as I mentioned, by Franklin Covey, the most trusted leadership firm in the world, co-founded by the renowned thinker, model, and hero of mine, Dr. Stephen R. Covey, who of course wrote, amongst many books, the seminal book titled The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, on its way to selling and influencing 100 million people across the world. When we interview guests, we try to find people that have similar points of view and similar values, but from different topics and walks of life. Today we have the renowned Dr. Ruth Gotian. She has been on our podcast before once, and she's here today to talk about her new release focused on the art and science of mentoring. Ruth's book is titled Mentoring, A Complete Guide to Effective Mentoring. Now, her expertise happens to be generally in the healthcare realm, but as an academician, as a keynote speaker, as a coach, as a consultant, she has deep expertise in designing and sustaining and implementing both formal and informal mentor programs across all industries. In fact, her book was published by the Financial Times, so it has a global audience as well. So if your organization is thinking about a mentor initiative, you've had one and need to relaunch it, or perhaps you yourself are interested in finding a mentor or being a mentor, we have the expert in the house today. Dr. Ruth, welcome back to On Leadership.
Hello.
Great to have you
New
here.
York City.
Great to have you here. From New York City, you are traveling the world. You were recently in Ireland giving a keynote. You're headed to Italy. Wouldn't I love to just carry your bags?
You would have loved to carry them to Paris for the Olympics. That was awesome.
It was. You city dropper, you. So let's talk about your history. This is your second time on our podcast by my invitation. You and I both share a lot of things in common, including a passion for mentorship. But Ruth, you're broader than that. Would you maybe rewind a couple of decades? Because you've had a very prestigious academic career, both as a student and as a leader. And I'd love to have you talk for a few minutes around some of the books that you've published and where you currently are in terms of your professional career.
Sure. So I am a social scientist, which means I'm like a professional Oprah. I get to talk to people, I study people, and what I study are extreme high achievers, Nobel Prize winners and astronauts, Olympians, CEOs, NBA champions. I want to figure out how they became so successful and how the rest of us mere mortals can improve our own success. So at the age of 43, while working full time, I went back to school to get my doctorate where I studied success and have been on this path ever since. And I write academic articles, but I also write business books and articles in Harvard Business Review and Forbes and Fast Company. And I think my superpower is translating academic ideas and theory into those practical tips that all of us could implement immediately, because most people don't geek out on academic theory the way I do. So I like to translate it for everyone so that they can geek out on what makes them happy.
If only you could have been my high school algebra teacher. I would have been having more fun during the summers versus repeating that twice in a row. That's for therapy. Let's talk about mentoring. It's a passion that you and I both share. You are a well-in-demand keynote around the world for the topics that you speak on. Let's talk about what mentoring is not. I have often evangelized that I don't think mentoring is the same as allyship or sponsorship or coaching. I think it can become that when the right conditions exist and the right rapport is built and sustained. But I wonder if you disagree with that. Let's first talk about what mentoring isn't. The doctor is in, you say what?
The doctor is in. Look, a mentor is not somebody who's going to solve your problems. A mentor is not someone who's going to do things for you. And a mentor is not short-term or a quick fix. A mentor is long-term, the guide by your side, somebody who sees further into the horizon than you can see for yourself. They're there to really give you that push, that motivation, think about things differently, give you that little perspective and that encouragement. This is somebody who is there long term. And there's a difference between a mentor, coach, sponsor. They're all great. I don't want anyone listening to obsess over those labels because, Scott, I think we have enough labels in our lives. We don't need more. But what we should have are all of those people on our professional team to help us advance in our careers. We need the coach for those short-term, acute things that we want to work on. We need those mentors for those long-term vision and strategy. And we need the sponsor who's going to talk about us in rooms we're not in. We need all those people, but please don't focus on those labels. Just know you need all those people on your team.
Ruth, here's a controversial question. I mean, you could have written a book called You Must Breathe Air or You Will Die. I mean, why is there still a campaign to educate people on the value of mentorship? I mean, you've written a whole book about it. Doesn't everyone understand how crucial mentorship is to their success in life, but also how important it is to mentor others to give back? Isn't it like breathing air? Or is there still confusion or misunderstanding? Or why did you dedicate an entire book to a topic to me that seems self-evident?
It seems, and you would think that there wouldn't need to be a book on it. We wouldn't need to be talking about this. Look, Scott, we know all the research has shown, and this hasn't changed in a quarter of a century. Those who are mentored out-earn and outperform those who don't. I always start my keynote, raise your hand if you have a mentor. And everyone look at those who have their hand raised because they're going to make more money than you. And it's true. And they're going to get promoted more often. And they're going to be happier in their job. They're going to be happier in their careers. They're going to have less burnout. But yet the research also shows that while 76% of people understand the benefits of having a mentor, they have heard me talk, they have read the articles, they have read the book, they understand the benefits of a mentor, but yet only 37% of people have a mentor. A third. So we have this huge gap that needs to be filled because if we want people to be productive, if we want people to be effective, if we want people to be high achievers, mentoring is one of the best tools in our toolkit. And it not only helps the mentee, it also helps the mentor because mentors are 6 times more likely to get promoted themselves. And wait, there's more. It also helps the organization because it serves as the best retention tool out there. Those who are mentored are significantly more likely to stay within an organization. And at a time when we have such a revolving door of talent, and talent to replace the good talent is so expensive and so timely, so time consuming, we need to work with what we have. And mentoring is the most overlooked yet the most important retention tool that we can have.
Well, I might even add to that, in addition to it being an invaluable retention tool for the mentee, I think it's an invaluable tool for retaining the mentor. Because you have a lot of executives
100%.
that are burnt out, they're tired, their day job is consuming them, not in a positive way, and they want to make a contribution. They want to, have a little bit of something, maybe even aspirational to think about with their job. And so I think it's a great tool to retain your mentors. Tell me, in all of your research, have you found that the majority of people who are in a mentoring relationship, is that happening formally through their employer or through an association or some kind of organization? Or is it happening kind of just because you had a gutsy young person that said, hey, would you mentor me, Dr. Ruth? How are most people receiving mentorship?
So according to the research, every single Fortune 50 company has a formal mentoring program, and 96% of the Fortune 500 companies have a mentoring program. That's how important it is. Is it effective? That's another story. But we do know that the most effective mentoring relationships happen informally. They're not part of a formal program. And so what we need to do is really create opportunities for people to meet others organically. So I think that is really one of the best first steps that we can take.
Okay, let's go there. Let's talk less about the organizational structure and the ups and the downs of programmatic things. People can read the book, which they should, because you have a lot of great tips on how to make sure that goes well. Let's talk to everybody listening that buys into everything you say. They understand that they're 6 more times likely to get promoted, they're going to out-earn, all of that. Not just to mention the inherent truth of the wisdom and benefit of someone who's kind of been where you're going or can see broader than you. List out for us what the best ways for someone that maybe doesn't know where to start. They don't work for a Fortune 500. They work for an Inc. 2000 or an Inc. 5000. And their company doesn't offer a mentor program. Maybe they're shy, maybe they're an introvert, maybe their network is small, but they buy into the value prop you're sharing today. In your experience, the person who's watching this and they're in high school or college, they're listening to this as a solopreneur, they don't have a huge LinkedIn network, they don't know where to start. Share with us some of the ways people can just get off the metaphorical sofa and go find a mentor.
I think people are putting way too much stress on themselves saying, I need to find a mentor. I need to look for a mentor. Where can I find a mentor? They go to these networking receptions and they say, I need to find a mentor. But you don't walk into those rooms saying, I need to find my new best friend. So take that pressure off. Walk in and say, where am I going to meet interesting people?
Some of them do, and they're usually aimed beeline for me. So that is the case in some scenarios. And but keep going,
And how does that work out for them?
Well, it depends how many glasses of champagne I may have had. So keep going.
But usually that doesn't work. So the better thing to do is go see where there are interesting people that you can connect with, either in person or online. Either one will work. The whole world is open to you. Technically, you don't need to meet with your mentor in person. There are so many ways that we can do it virtually now. But you want to find someone with whom you connect. Now, just because they have expertise in something does not necessarily mean that is someone you will gel with. So not everyone from New York is the same. So to connect me with somebody who's from New York saying you'd be a great mentor-mentee pair, that's absurd because not everyone from New York is the same. So you want to just find interesting people that you connect with, because if they are not the right fit for you, they might be able to introduce you to other people who are. So try to think about the same way you would when you're looking for a friend. You don't go in with that intention, I hope. You don't go into a room saying, I'm going to find my new life partner, I hope. You see where these organic conversations will take you. And you start the conversation. You need these conversation starters to really get the conversation going. That's where what you have in common is a great start. Where you're both from New York, or you both went to the same school, or you both like to travel to Italy, or your favorite dessert, whatever it is. That's a great way to start the conversation. And then where are you going to go from there? So for example, if you were talking to Scott, you might want to talk about your champagne, how much that you love champagne, because we know that Scott can talk about that for a very long time.
Ruth, one of the things I like about you is your flattery. No, one of the things I like about you, and I followed your career, one of the things is you're insanely well-spoken. Obviously, you're extraordinarily well-educated. You're a practitioner, a writer, an author, a speaker, a researcher, but you just have a beautiful command of our language. Would you role play just a couple of ways that mentees might approach a mentor and ask them into the relationship? Throw us a couple of Ruthisms on what, as a mentor yourself, what's the best way to maybe not cold approach someone, but say you've built some rapport, you've been more than just you've had a meatball or two. What are some of the best ways to win a mentor over into the relationship informally?
Well, first, I want to tell you what you should not do.
Thank you.
Never, ever, ever ask somebody to be your mentor. Because when you are asking someone to be your mentor, you're asking them to take on another obligation. And that sounds heavy. No one has time for that. No one has remnants of their time. But if you approach them and say, I really want to work on starting a podcast. I have worked on it. I have a list of people who I want to talk about. These are the production crew I want to get together. Scott, I know you've done this a lot. You have multiple podcasts. This one's on twice a week. Could I meet with you for 15, 20 minutes, show you what I put together, and maybe you could point out some things that I might have overlooked? That sounds very different because now you know what I want to talk about. Not, can you help me with my career? It's something very specific. There's a time constraint that I'm asking for, and it's very, very directed. I chose you because you have expertise on that. So that is what you want to have the conversation with. But note, you never have an ask until you build the rapport with someone. People like to work with those who they know, like, and trust. 50% of Nobel Prize winners were trained by other Nobel Prize winners because people want to work on their legacy. They want to be able to help those diamonds in the rough. But you need to show them that you are capable of that and that you want to do that. So I think when you start to connect with someone, and it doesn't have to be about what your ask is, it's how you can help them. Start with what you can do for them. Work on that relationship, show how you go the extra mile, and then you can come with an ask that is directed. It's very specific. It's clear why you're asking them, and there's a time constraint to it. You want to show that you've done the work. By doing it that way, you will see that people will want to help you. You will become the mentee that mentors will flock toward, and that's where you want to be.
Okay, quick sidebar. On occasion, I have been accused of being well-connected, but girl, I got nothing on you because you know everybody, because you are a researcher at heart. You mentioned you're a sociologist, you study people. And in your previous books and in your articles, you have a friend network like no one I know. And all of them are high performers, quite intimidating. You have talked with numerous athletes, world record holders, NBA players, NFL players, Olympians. On a sidebar, do high performers make good mentors, or is that unrelatable? Is that intimidating? When someone is looking for a mentor, should you go to the world's expert? Should you ask the person who won the gold medal? Should you ask the CEO? Any advice as you work with all these high performers? Do they make the best mentors, or should you shoot for middle range? What advice would you give on that?
Well, first, I think we should compare our networks because that would be cool.
It would.
And
You
I
share
think,
yours
I
first.
think
How about that?
yeah, it's fun, which is a great segue. Steve Kerr, the 9-time NBA champion, wrote the foreword to the Financial Times Guide to Mentoring, which is always great. And that was great fun. Do the high achievers make great mentors? Well, you have to think who they're mentoring and who you want to mentor. You want the expert in the room, not the expert in the world, because you need to be able to connect with them. And that is what is so important. If they're the expert, but you don't gel with them, it's not going to work. They have a big name, but it's not going to help you. You want the expert in the room. That person might even be junior to you. That person might be at your level. You want someone who has expertise and skill and perspective that will help launch you to that next phase. I will tell you that high achievers do make great mentors. They really want to share their knowledge. And they're looking, as I said, for those diamonds in the rough. But if you want to play basketball and you want to start asking Steve Kerr to mentor you, that's probably not going to be a good fit. That's a cold call. That is not going to work. But I am sure he is mentoring a whole generation of people as we speak. So I think you need to find the person that's right for you.
Ruth, when mentoring goes off the rails, when it blows up, when it's a disappointment, in your experience, what usually are the ingredients from either the mentee or mentor's side?
Yeah. That's when I say the mentor turns into the tormentor. And that's never good, because once somebody has been burned, they don't want to find a mentor again. And that's too bad, because we already talked about all the great things that a mentor can do for your career. What does that bad mentoring, that tormenting, look like? They may ignore you. You may reach out to them for guidance, perspective, a problem, a challenge, and they just don't respond. Or they don't want to have those difficult conversations, or they feel threatened by you advancing so quickly. Those are all signs that something bad is happening. We talk about passive and aggressive mentoring malpractice. Mentoring malpractice was actually a quote by my friends Vineet Chopra and Sanjay Saint. All the passive and aggressive things that a tormentor might do, which also includes stopping you from getting ahead or berating you in front of other people. Those are all really bad signs, and there are ways to overcome that.
That sounds like narcissism, but I have no experience with that, so I couldn't speak more on that at all. Anyway, your book is called Mentoring, that was a joke, Mentoring, a Complete Guide to Effective Mentoring. Talk about how the book is laid out, architectured, who should be reading this book. Why would someone want to pick up a copy of the book?
So this is part of the Financial Times series of books. They have on all different topics within business. We know, as I said, that almost every single Fortune 500 company, every major organization has a mentoring program, but we have found that they weren't done well. People were not trained how to be effective mentors. The mentoring programs, no one was really taking control of them and really thinking about how to lay them out properly. So this book is for those within the business world, within the workforce, those who are mentors and want to be better mentors, the mentees who want to really be effective mentees, and for organizations who really want to coordinate and lay out an effective mentoring program. Look, I used to be a dean for mentoring. And when I started, I was looking for the one seminal book that had everything that I needed, soup to nuts. And it didn't exist. There were mentoring for different groups, mentoring for women, mentoring, for the different groups, but nothing that had this general how to run a mentoring program, how to be an effective mentor, mentee. So with my co-author, Andy Lapata, we wrote the book that I always wanted but never found. And it has everything in there. It has templates, it has scripts, it has worksheets, it has infographics. Anything that you can imagine that you would need, it is in there.
Ruth, you've also done an excellent job of creating other opportunities that people can consume your content. Would you talk a little bit about some of the courses you've designed? Because I think there's lots of thought leaders, lots of creators, artists that are wondering, how do you create an Udemy course? How do you create a LinkedIn course? Because you've done that with some prolific success. My invitation, talk about your programs, because I think it's helpful for people that may want a deeper dive. They may have a different modality in which they learn. Maybe a course is better than a book or whatever it is. Yeah. Shamelessly talk about some of your programs, because I think everybody can benefit from understanding, gosh, how do you monetize or productize IP in the new economy where everybody's a creator?
Everyone's a creator, but not everyone has good content. Look, I am an adult educator, and one of the things that I know is that people take in and process information differently. I don't mean you're a visual learner, you're an auditory learner. No, it's how we take it in and make sense of it. And some people want to read a full book. Some people just want the bite-size articles. Some people want to listen to podcasts. Some people want to watch a webinar. Some want to take a deeper dive with a course that has resources in it. And they're all valid. And this allows people to really reach different types of learners. So yes, I have the book, The Financial Times Guide to Mentoring. Yes, there are hundreds of podcasts where I talk about it, webinars, LinkedIn Live. I have multiple LinkedIn learning courses, and I'm creating a few more, and multiple courses on Udemy. And I just recorded another one about how to leverage mentoring to meet some of your goals for diversity and inclusion. These are all ways that we can really get the word out there and meet different people where they are in the way that they learn best, And I am able to reach millions and millions of people throughout the globe that I will never have the opportunity to meet. So while the keynotes are great and I get to meet so many people and I really get, jived when I get to do that, there's also people who want to be able to multitask as they're learning by listening or by watching the courses. And there's something there for everyone because I want to make sure that I am able to reach every learner where they are.
Talk a little bit about the need to step out of a mentoring relationship. Either you're a mentee or you're a mentor. Maybe it's not blowing up, but it's not right. You know it's not right. Maybe your mentee or mentor doesn't know it's not right, but it's clear to you. Have you discovered, uncovered, codified even some gracious exits that allow the honor and the reputation to stay intact when it's not the right fit? Sometimes you know that 1 hour in, sometimes it's 3 weeks in, sometimes it's months. Take that wherever you'd like to go.
So we talked about the tormentor, but there's also the marginal mentor. The marginal mentor, it's just vanilla. It's not really going anywhere. And there are ways, just like you can get out of the tormentor relationship, you can also get out of the marginal mentor relationship. And this is where the team of mentors is helpful. So we grew up thinking that you need somebody who's older and wiser and in the C-suite who looks just like you to be your mentor. The more contemporary approach is to have a team of mentors from different fields, different levels, someone senior to you at your level, junior to you, and a reverse mentor. And these are people that can really help you out of these sticky situations. So if you have a tormentor or a marginal mentor that's either not helping to push your career forward or really inhibiting the growth of your career, they are literally putting up hurdles so that you cannot move forward. There's a team of mentors who can help you get out of that. That exit ramp is so critical. And that exit ramp is often what's missing in the formal mentoring relationships, but in the informal ones with your team of mentors, this is so critical. You can say, look, I'm having a problem with my mentor, Scott. It's really not working out. He didn't do anything bad. We just, he wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I like to sleep a little later. We have totally different hours. We can't seem to ever find a time to communicate. I think it would be better if I had someone else. Can you help me think how I should have that challenging conversation? And they can really help you work through that in a way where you don't burn bridges.
Well, you cheated me. It's 4 a.m., not 5 a.m., but we'll let that slide for a moment. Ruth, close our conversation. Who has been your most impactful mentor, and what did she or he teach you that is sort of seared into your psyche?
6 words. Look, I mentioned early in our conversation that I was older when I went back to school. I was 43, and I was deciding what to do my research project on, and I was talking, I knew I was going to measure success, and I was looking to compare one year to another. And my mentor, Dr. Bert Shapiro, he said 6 words that changed my life. He said, do something important, not just interesting. And what that means is that when it's important, it'll have a ripple effect. And you can positively impact millions of people you will never have the opportunity to meet. When it's interesting, it's a hobby. And it won't affect that many people. And with those 6 words, I changed my research from a pilot institutional study to a global study, which then led to everything else, the books, the talks, the LinkedIn Learning courses, and everything else. So those 6 words, whenever I sign copies of the Financial Times Guide to Mentoring above my signature, I add those 6 words, do something important, not just interesting. So I can pass on my mentor's words to the next generation.
Perhaps the most networked person in the world, Dr. Ruth Gotian, thank you for joining us today. Your most recent book is the Financial Times Guide to Mentoring, a complete guide to effective mentoring. Delighted to have you back on. What's next for you? What's on the horizon for you?
Well, there might be another book in the future. Lots more talks where I get to teach about this great work and teach people how to be effective mentors and mentees, and all of those online courses on LinkedIn Learning and Udemy. So go check it out.
And I would say to follow you on social because you are a prolific poster. your spotlight is massive because you're always shining the light on someone else and sharing what it is you've learned from their accomplishments as well. Hey, you're a class act. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you back here next week for a new conversation on leadership.